Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and a new Baldurs Gate video. Today though, we're back for a new build, a multi-class build concept using a cool mix of Wildheart Barbarian and the open hand monk. Yeah, we're using this massive two-hand greatsword here to smash foes, but then suddenly mix it up and switch it up to punch with a flurry of blows for a bunch of different utility or just all the extra attacks and DPS that provides. Quite literally, we'll be using our sword and fist all at once. Thanks to the mix of, say, the Barbarian Raw, which will half most incoming damage while active, you can massively reduce all incoming damage. And in this build, we'll be benefiting from a lot of different ways to get lots of temporary hit points to further enhance our survivability. Combine that with the perks of being unarmored, which this build has, and the monk will flow in nicely. The monk makes use of the bonus actions, with flurry of blows of course, while the barbarian is smashing with the main action attacks generally. Utility does come in thanks to the monk though, from its impressive movement, the perks of say stunning strike, which can be used with a weapon, and the chi abilities for powerful AoE potential if you're looking for that. Thanks to our feats, our strength is used to its maximum via the Tavern Brawler feat and the Great Weapon attacks tied to the Barbarian itself. So Great Weapon Master works in perfect there. And the specific gear we're using allows for massive damage, especially against bigger enemies, or we'll be making ourselves big too. The gear further provides things like reflective damage, bonus necrotic damage, and we can turn our jump into an offensive ability. This unarmored monster then is surprisingly survivable, the massive meat shield of the party, while also dealing big hits and many hits at that every turn. You basically become a mini boss. So let's cover how this all works, starting with the leveling. Overall then, this build will be a level 3 Wildheart Barbarian and a level 9 Open Hand Monk. This is to push Monk specifically to level 9 for the Resonant Strike, movement and immunity to rough terrain perks that has. It is tempting to go for into Barbarian for the extra feat, but it's also just such a big loss with the level 9 Monk being so good. To begin with though, we start with Barbarian, who will obviously get Rage and the Unarmored Defense perk. While not wearing armor, we get to add our Constitution modifier to the AC itself, and of course we get the general proficiencies of Barbarian. When it comes to your starting ability points, there's two ways you want to set this up. Because I am using these gauntlets here, which are the Hill Giant Strength gauntlets, they automatically set my strength to 23. So there's literally no reason to have a single point spent into strength, even though strength is going to be such an important stat in this build. If you do not currently have those gloves though, this is the setup I would recommend. We'd start the game then with 16 strength, 14 dex, 12 on constitution, 8 intelligence, this is not important, 16 wisdom, since we have some wisdom modifiers from the monk, and 8 charisma. Whereas if you do have the gauntlets in your act 3, maybe it's time to respec and sort out your ability points, at which point you'd put your strength as low as possible, pushing your dex, your wisdom, and even a bit of constitution if you're not using the amulet to also set your constitution to 23, to have more of a balanced set. But you can alter this however you see fit, depending on what gear you have and when. It's very easy to respec. From here, the leveling itself is going to be simple. We'll start with Barbarian as I've said, and then at level 2 we'll go into Barbarian again. This is when we get Reckless Attack, of course a major player in this build. For level 3 we'll once again go into Barbarian, now able to choose our subclass, where we're of course going Wildheart. In specific with the Bestial Heart we'll be going Bearheart, which is the amazing rage that allows us to massively reduce incoming damage by half. At this point then we can start to multiclass. At level 4, going into Monk for the first time, where we're going to get Flurry of Blows, the all-important bonus action that's using our fists as our weapon. This ties into unarmored defense though, as we mentioned in the sort of point section. While not wearing armor, you add your wisdom modifier to your armor class. From here, all the remaining points will go into Monk all the way to level 9. At level 3 in the Monk though, you will have your subclass, but we're of course taking Open Hand, where we're going to really get some of the awesome details of Flurry of Blows, being able to topple enemies, stagger them, or push them, depending on what you need. At level 4 in the Monk, we will finally get our first feat. As said in the introduction, the two that we're going to care about are going to be Great Weapon Master, which allows for extra attacks in certain scenarios, as well as the plus 10 to damage rolls when you use heavy melee weapons, and the other feat we care about is Tavern Brawler, benefiting our unarmed attacks from strength in that case. At level 5 in Monk, we're going to get the all-important extra attack, which will serve as a major power spike in the build. At this point, we'll also unlock Stunning Strike, which can use the weapon to stun the target using an action and a chi point, which is very nice. At Monk level 6, we'll get the subclass features of the manifestations of body, mind, and soul, allowing you to add additional radiant, psychic, and necrotic damage to your attacks, specifically when using unarmed attacks. At level 8 in the Monk, we'll be able to pick up Tavern Brawler for the additional perk of that. Finally, at our total level of 12, we will have level 3 in Barbarian and level 9 in the Monk, at which point we're going to get our unarmored movement, maximum benefit, jump extra distance when not wearing armor, and difficult terrain will no longer slow us down. We also have the Chi Resonance, which can generate the resonance and then blast it, AoEing in force damage, which can be very potent. Now it's time to talk about our pretty interesting looking outfit, this bone-covered warrior that he is. Now, what I'm about to explain is the ideal armor long-term and examples of that. In regards to working your way to an ideal set, you want to aim for something that is going to enhance your damage. Items that provide perks like reaching your target effectively, literally improve your damage, and stats and otherwise. Because we're using our fist for some attacks and your two-hand weapon for others, items that improve either of that will always help. But here's the main items we're aiming for, which come in Act 3. Our main weapon, of course, is the Baldur's Giant Slayer. This 2d6 Greatsword weapon that is a two-hand weapon comes with some unique perks. It has its own class action, Giant Form, which grows you to a larger size, adding damage to your weapon, sure, but also giving you 27 temporary hit points and advantage on strength checks and saving throws for 10 turns, and you can do this every short rest, so every fight. On hit, it will double the damage from your strength modifier, and it also gives you advantage on attack rolls when dealing with the very large creatures of the world. It also comes with its own unique attack, Topple the Big Folk, dealing additional damage equal to your proficiency bonus, and yeah, extra damage to those larger creatures. So basically, it's a very strong weapon that is outrageously strong against bigger enemies, and also makes yourself big for both damage and health purposes. This is the major reward at the end of the Wormway sort of gauntlet, found under the Worm Rock, the big keep that we pass through to get to the lower city. I do actually have a whole guide on this challenge, how to get there, the details of it. It involves 4 cool puzzles and a big difficult combat encounter at the end, and it's well worth doing for the fun of it, the lore and all that, as well as the incredible weapon and a helm that you get as a reward. So strongly recommend that outside of this build. From the top down then, let's start with the helmet. The Horns of the Berserker. Coming with Seeking Blood, you gain an additional 2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures that have already taken damage. Second to that is Bloodthirst. Your unarmed and melee attacks, what great synergy, deal an extra 2 necrotic damage, as long as you don't have full health at the time. It'll help you with that though, because if you don't deal any damage that turn, you take damage at the end of your turn. Though since we want to rage in a fight, we want to attack every turn, so you shouldn't ever really be dealing with that. The Horns of the Berserker though, can just be bought from a vendor in Act 3. Dandelion's Dancing Axe by the Worms Crossing Waypoint, again right at the start of Act 3, you can just walk on in and buy it, and it's actually not that expensive. For the chest piece though, we have the Bone Spike Garb. Slabjaw Determination gives you 15 temporary hit points whenever you rage, so at the start of a fight, we just start with that extra health. There's a lot of temporary health to be used in this build. Now, it isn't actually armor, it's clothing, which allows us to remain in that unarmored state, benefiting from the passives of the Barbarian and the Monk, which is really nice and why this is so good. But it also keeps you alive in another way. Exoskeletal Endurance reduces all incoming damage by 2, which is amazing, and then the attacker actually will take 6 piercing damage each time they attack you. Awesome. This is a bit more expensive compared to the Horns of the Berserker though. It's bought early in Act 3 as well though, at the vendor in the Rivington General right at the start of Act 3. Just head down, speak with them, and buy the chest piece. It is well worth the money, though bear in mind you can use higher charisma and general trading to make it cheaper. When it comes to the gloves, it's a bit more complicated. The gauntlets of the Hill Giant Strength are a major option, setting your wearer's strength to 23 as well as the +1 to strength saving throws. This is insane, and obviously it means a lot of our builds end up resetting and respecking once we get something like this to put our strength to 8 as low as it'll go, because it's going to be set to 23 anyway. This is found and stolen from the House of Hope to do with Raphael and all of that storyline. I have a full guide on the House of Hope and how to get all the items and the details of it and the different routes and paths and story stuff. So if you're interested in that, that's how you're going to get those. And in the same area, you can get the Hell Dust Gloves, which can be a great alternative. Your weapon attacks deal extra fire damage, your unarmed attacks deal extra necrotic damage. What synergy there is there. So there are other options, just be aware of it. For the boots, I'm going with the Bone Spike boots for the theme. them with the Bone Spike chest. These come with an awesome perk, which is +1 bonus to AC and saving throws as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield, which we aren't in this build. So just an extra AC in a build like this is certainly nice to have, but it also gets a improved jump distance and its own class action, the Brutal Leap, which appears down here on the bottom right. So this allows us to leap a target and maybe knock it down, but it's an offensive, aggressive leap jump in combat, which can be pretty cool for closing gaps and getting to a target, while also being offensive as it will knock them down, meaning more damage when you attack them. It's found in the chest, found in the secluded passageway, aka the small cave, found all the way west in the starting area of Act 3 of Rivington. It's just the chest in the cave. You need to disarm it and open it up, but first you may have to potentially fight your way through two factions that are about to brawl right as you approach this cove area, again all the way west in this region. In regards to your rings and amulet, it's more like dealer's choice. There's going to be things that are going to help you get to targets like extra movement speed from the Crusher's Ring, and as mentioned, there is the amulet of greater strength, which will set the wearer's constitution to 23, again meaning we can put our constitution to 8 on a respec and benefit from points elsewhere. It's obviously very, very strong and also comes from the House of Hope, so the same guide as the Gauntlets of the Hill Giant Strength, same area. Now let's cover the gameplay guide generally. Build and playstyle is a neat concept here, with both weapon and unarmed attacks being used, like we say, with a Flurry of Blows as your bonus action options and your main actions being used as your weapon attacks. But there is utility in other options. You have Stunning Strike, which comes in both melee and unarmed attacks. We have the Chi Resonance, where you apply the resonance to a target and then pop it using the blast for an AoE damage of force damage. The Monk provides Step of the Wind for dash, disengage, and defense. In most cases though, we'll use it for dash, which will double our movement speed, and the jump will no longer require a bonus action, as another way to reach your targets. When it comes to the Flurry of Blows, you'll be choosing between Topple, Stagger, and Push, which will most of the time be Topple because it'll knock a target prone, making them more vulnerable to attack. The weapon does come with its own proficiencies like Pommel Strike or Cleave or Lacerate, but pretty much every fight will be using Giant Form to get big, get the temporary hit points, improve our damage, and ideally hit someone hard with Topple the Big Folk, the powerful weapon proficiency that comes from the Greatsword itself. So to play it out, we'll start the fight by using our Bear Rage mode, of course, and ideally as soon as possible, Giant Forming. While our Bear Rage is going, then we're going to be massively reducing all incoming damage while active. It halves most damage types, including physical, which is going to be the most and major damage reducer there. To maintain the rage though, you do need to make sure you attack every turn, so while it lasts a total of 10 turns, it'll only last while you do attack each turn. So make sure you attack to maintain it in any way you can each turn. To perform the attacks though, we'll most likely be using Reckless Strike, which allows us to attack twice with our weapon. Then we'll use our bonus actions to Flurry of Blows or Resonant Chi depending on the situation. Whenever we want, we can use our other class actions or specific weapon abilities for any added power, like I said. I think it's pretty cool. We're using our actions generally to use Barbarian combat, while our bonus actions generally go to the Monk combat. Weaving the two together to make this sword and fist style of combat, it is very cool and effective and fun. Everything when it comes to utility and timing and choosing when and why you use other stuff is up to you, of course. But there you have it, another unique multi-class build concept to try out. As always, if you have any tips or build changes you might suggest, you can drop it in the comments, but I do think this is very cool. This simple idea of using both your weapon and fist at the same time, while also being very effective because BG3 allows for it, it's really nice. Obviously, the long-term plan is to use the specific gear I've explained in Act 3, where things obviously get very crazy, but it is important to adapt the build around gear that you find in your own journey till you reach those more ideal items. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.